All right. So last we left off, I added this piece. I did realize that I did that a little quick, and there may have been some confusion. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do it one more time for you guys, just to make sure that you guys see it and you get a clear view of it. Okay. So we're going to go do the fasten piece, fasten mate. Remember, we're going to zoom in on this line right here. Okay. Once we have that selected, we're going to change our view. Okay, change our view to back. And we're going to click this seam right here on the edge. Once we've clicked that, we can come back to our isometric view. If you ever need to find isometric view, it's right there. And we're going to click the check mark. Boom. It matches right with this part here. Let me not get too out of the view. And you can see right here it matches, okay? So we're good. So once we have that here, we're going to go ahead to our next slide. And believe me, we're going to bang out these next 10 steps. We will finish this within this video. I have faith in you. Just follow along. Now we're going to add this mate, a fasten mate, to the edge of this piece here and to the cube, okay? And I'll show you exactly what that piece is. So if you're confused, it's going to be, again, this piece on the inside here, okay, and that's going to be pieced up right there. Think about the pieces that connect together. Think about the water water bottle and the cap. Where are the pieces that are actually touching and making contact? Okay, let's do that. So we're going to add a mate, fasten mate. Okay, I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to click this ring again, the outer ring. Okay, now I'm going to change my view. Now, you want to use this circle on the cube, but you want that to be on this face, okay? What that means is you will have to zoom in and you'll be able to peek within here this crease, okay? That may not make sense, but it is this circle, right, on this face, right? You see it there. Make sure that you're zoomed in. You can see in the outer ring once I click it, it will snap into place. I can go ahead and click check mark. I can change my view so I'm looking at it from the other side. Okay, if you are confused looking at it from the front side, it is the same. That's flush, which means that it's touching. Perfect. We're going to go ahead and click check mark. We're going to move right along. Next slide. Now, while we're here, this is going to have us restructure the assembly. What that means is we're going to select the universal joint axle, okay? And we're going to select the graphite phosphorus brushes. It's a brushes, that's what it is. Excuse me. I mean, look like a cheese grater, but it's brushes, okay? Once I have these two, I'm going to right click and I'm going to move them to a new subassembly. All right, all I did here was I selected the graphite brushes and I selected the universal joint axis. I right click, both of them are highlighted, and I moved them to a new subassembly. What you see, nothing really changes down here. They put them both into a new assembly. I'm going to click here, okay? I'm going to also rename that subassembly, okay? Already on the 10th step. I'm going to rename that. Okay? That's going to be universal, UNIV, okay, dot, joint, okay, axle, okay, and that's going to be a sub-assembly. You can just type sub-assemb, that's fine, press enter. Universal joint assembly, axle sub-assembly, okay? Now, I'm going to look on the other side. Okay, I'm going to select the bottom anywhere. I'm going to click anywhere on the bottom of this, okay? I'm going to see this pop up. Remember, I want to select this circle, and I'm going to click and drag this circle right to the center. It'll pop right into place. Once I have that, I want to look at my different view. Okay, the arrow pointing out, that is your Z arrow, okay? I want to right click that and I want to anti-align with the Z, okay? Depending on how it's orientated, you want it to be sitting straight up, okay? Anti-align with Z, I have it sitting straight up. I can move into isometric view. If I click on my next slide, This is how it should be orientated, okay? Anti-align with the Z, I can now click off, okay? And it's lined up exactly how I want it, okay? Take a breather, we're halfway there. Right click the part, we're gonna click fix, and we're good. We've aligned this in a way that now we're going to rotate it, add it to the subassembly, and I'll show you what that looks like next. Once we click next view, I think this is the step that got a lot of people, okay? Follow me. Feel free to rewind and pause it. I will also walk you through this in class tomorrow, okay? Now, we're going to go back to our universal joint assembly. Remember, this is where we have this already the yellow joint and the cube with the brushes, okay? Let's go back to our isometric view. Okay, what we're going to do, we're going to select replicate, okay? I'm gonna look for replicate. Okay, once I click replicate, I'm going to click my universal joint axle subassembly. I'm gonna click my subassembly, okay? And I'm going to click each face that does not have that subassembly, okay? So I'll click where it's red, make sure that this is blue, and I'm going to select each face. And when I select each face, you'll see that I'm actually replicating the subassembly, okay? And I've now replicated the part so that it's copied it to each face. And don't worry, I'll do that one more time for you, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and delete that other fastened. I believe that was just an error, don't mind it. Replicate. I'm going to click, I'm going to research replicate, right? I'm going to select replicate, okay? And remember, if you read the instructions, it walks you through all of these steps, okay? Select replicate, right? Then you're going to select the subassembly, okay, as the instance. Then you're going to choose match individual faces from the pull down menu, okay? Okay. Now, with that being said, my instance is here. I'm going to click instance, and then I'm going to click the universal joint axle subassembly, okay? Now, you see here it says match individual faces. I can click down this drop down. I'm going to match individual faces. I'm going to select individual edges to match, okay? Excuse me, not edges. That's not what you want. Match. Oh, I see. This may be something that confused you guys here. The directions say match individual faces. That's not what you want, okay? As soon as this pops up, it'll tell you match edges on faces, okay? If I close this and I open it back up, it'll say match faces and parts. You don't have to change that. You're just going to keep that for what it is, match faces and parts, okay? If that was the issue, now we've rectified it. We're going to click instances. We're going to click universal joint subassembly. We're going to click faces to find, okay? Once you click that, we're going to click each face. Once you click each face of that cube, it's going to automatically replicate that part. We're going to only click 3 of those faces. Once you've clicked all 3, we're going to click check mark. The hardest part is behind us. Now we're moving forward with finishing up the part. Let me check time on how we're doing. Boom, we still got 6 minutes, doing well, okay? Now, if that gives you problems, make sure that you've done the other steps the correct way. Make sure that you've aligned your Z for the subassembly. You might have to anti-align it. Really, as long as it's inverted up, then it's correct. Sometimes with these directions, I will say, it will tell you to use anti-align, but it'll also continue saying use anti-align if it's not orientated the right way. Orientated means it's just not orientated the way that you need it. Sitting up or down. You want it sitting up, that may be anti-align, that may be aligned, okay? Double check where you added your mates. If you added your mates in the wrong place, for instance, if you didn't select the right line that I'm showing you, then it may have an issue replicating it because it may replicate it in the wrong place. That happens. Sometimes a small error becomes a bigger error later on down the line. But instead of deleting everything and starting over, double check your mates, double check your assemblies, double check your other steps. It's much easier to sift through and check your mates than just starting completely over. Okay. Now, with that being said, let's go ahead and move on and wrap this up. We're going to move on to step 13. We've now replicated this. Now we get into the fun part of creating that double-sided joint, okay? We're gonna right-click, and yes, you can right-click and copy parts. We're gonna right-click, copy universal joint, okay? Let's give some more space. We're gonna right-click into the space itself, and we're gonna paste the universal joint. Now we have two joints, okay? Once we have that other the other joint, we're actually gonna go about mating that joint, okay? Now, remember, we want to mate this so that these yellow sections are in this space without the yellow piece, okay? So looking at it, let's make sure that it looks just like this here. We're going to select this, and we're going to select this piece right here, all right? Make sure that it's lined up like that, because again, you don't want the yellow to clash with this other yellow flange, okay? Joint. With that, we're going to use what mate? Revolute mate. This is our second revolute mate. We're going to click revolute mate. We're going to select this disc first. It's the one disc that's actually facing us. Let me double check that. Yep, the one disc that's actually facing us. Once we have that selected, we're going to select the disc here. Once we zoom out, we can double check that that's in the right place, right? Now, looks a little funky. It's not sitting straight up. How we can correct that is by using the reorient secondary axis. We're just going to reorientate the axis. You can click this once, click it twice, click it 3 times. We're sitting straight up. We can see that these yellows are not clashing. The flanges or joints are not clashing. We'll click check mark. We're in good position. Okay, we are done. We don't need a revolute 3. We're going to close that. We're all caught up. Now we're missing something. I keep forgetting the 90 degrees limiters. It happens. I forget sometimes, right? With that, how do we get back to the revolute? We double click it. Double click our revolute mate. If it didn't come up the first time, try it again. Double click the revolute mate. Once we have that, we're going to click the limit. Once we click the limit, we're going to add -90. And for the maximum, we're going to add 90. Okay. And we're going to click check mark. Now we have our limits add. Anytime you make a mistake with a mate, you can always double click it and open it right back up. Okay. Great. We're going to move on. Almost done. We have 3 steps left. Okay. Step 15. We're going to move the top flange to universal joint assembly by clicking and drag that from the graphic area. Okay. We're going to click and we're going to drag this around. And there we go. Now we have more range. And this is a part that can be used for manufacturing, a part that can be used for assembly line and putting things together. Maybe it has to grab stuff and it needs an elbow, a joint, to have more freedom of motion, more degrees of freedom. How many degrees of freedom are there? You need to remember that. Okay, this is perfect. Now what we're going to do into the next slide or the next step, we're going to check the answers and we're going to reset the revolute mates, okay? If you go to revolute number 1, we're going to right click, we're going to reset it. Okay, if we go to revolute 2, we're going to right click and we're going to reset that as well. Boom, sitting straight up, it goes right back to its original place. Now we're on our last step, like I said, with about 30 seconds to spare, perfect timing. We're going to click mass properties here. Once at mass properties, we're going to take a screenshot, okay? We're going to click mass properties. We're going to look at the universal joint flange number 2. I'm going to make this bigger so that you can see it. Hopefully you can still see my screen. Let me do it this way just to double check that you guys can see it. Once I make this larger, isometric view, I'm going to click here, the mass properties. I'm going to click the universal joint. Which one was that? Universal joint flange. I can make this bigger to see myself.